Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Strikeforce Energy. Head on over to the website, strikeforceenergy.com. If you enjoy the flavor of freedom, the company's veteran-owned and everything's made in America. They've got great apparel. You can turn any 16.9-ounce beverage into an energy drink. There's no sugar, no calories, no stirring, or no shaking required. They also have a line of different products as well as Strikeforce coffee. So if I head into my cart, I've got a 4-count sample pack. I've got a 20-ounce coffee mug. And if I head into that checkout, use the promo code FNP, click to apply, and you're going to save 20% off any order. That's FNP at strikeforceenergy.com.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
Oh, and it is time, and let's get into it. You've got one half of Fight Night Picks, as always. One half being at Craig Allen FNP. You can find me there on Twitter and Instagram. And listen, we've got a great card coming up tonight, headlined by none other than Razor Blaydes and Drago Volkov. Curtis Blaydes, Alexander Volkov. I know a lot of people are really excited about that one. Gonna head into the chat quick already because we've got it. It's starting to line up. So if you want a chance in there, I will get into that. Danny D joining us as always, and Midwest Side Hustle saying, "Boom, my favorite MMA analysis next to Helwani." As long as we're right up on par. I mean, a couple of Canadians there. So let's get into it. Jerry saying, "Hey." Jerry, looking forward to it. Just my 2 cents as well. Justin is saying Modafferi is buff right now. I like Roxanne Modafferi in that fight against Lauren Murphy. And question mark kicks is starting to change a little bit. It used to start off where we get into fight of the night. We talk about some of the top prospects, and we'll get into that as well. But when we, started digging deeper into these episodes, we figured let's just toss the card up there, have a chance to talk about it, and talk about some of the fights that were added late, because last week you had Adeshev and Tyson Nam, and a lot of people were kind of unsure about that fight. The odds really close. This week's fight that's kind of flying under the radar, that we had a fighter that edited or came in late, Justin Jaynes. We're talking about Guitar Hero. And I couldn't get a good enough picture, so I took up Guitar Hero. So Trent is saying Camacho is still a good pick with the dude replacement. Yeah, we're going to get into that one. And we're going to talk about old Guitar Hero through the fire and the flames, Justin Jaynes. Maybe he should change his nickname to that. All right, so let's bring it back over. Danny D saying Hubbard's going to take Max's O. Tristan saying I'm watching from downtown Vancouver by the beach. Hopefully Vancouver's nice this time of year. Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. We've got a heat wave. It was 36 yesterday. That's Celsius. And with humidity, it's ridiculously hot. So it's crazy. Dilla P joining us. Quincy Brown in here as well. Producer Henny Boy. Listen, I'm really looking forward to this card. It should be a really good one. So let's start from the start and get into the first fight on the card. You have Austin Hubbard taking on Max Rohskopf. And a lot of people were asking about this fight. A lot of people pointed out the fact that I said Austin Hubbard beat Joe Selecki. It was a mistake. I obviously meant Kyle Prepolek, the Canadian in Canada. He had the, compartment syndrome or compartmentalization syndrome. I'm struggling with my words right now. After that fight, so he had to, of course, get surgery, which is kind of surprising there. So Austin Hubbard so far in the UFC is 1-2, former LFA champ, took on some tough tests there. Harvey Park, Killy Smoda, big win over Moda to get the belt, comes into the UFC, fights Davi Ramos. He had some successes in that fight, but he struggled against Ramos. Had the big win over Kyle Prepolek, who... Was Kyle Prepolek really the creme de la creme of UFC talent at lightweight? Probably not. And then he fought Marco Madsen, who looks like a force in the division. The first 2 rounds didn't go good for him, but the last one did. And he definitely won it, so he finished strong. But he's taken on such a young Max Rohskopf, where it's a guy that I was surprised he opened as a favorite. Like I said it in our prediction video, the fact that I thought, Austin Hubbard would probably open up, like a minus 200. And the lines were close. But you look at Rohskopf, and man, this guy is very good. NC State wrestler, very decorated there, training under Robert Drysdale, one of the best in the biz at jiu-jitsu. A lot of people were quick to point that one out. And he's just a guy that's had so much success in the regional scene. I think it's a little early to push him into the UFC. I think Austin Hubbard is actually even almost too much of a test. Not really, but it's tough to find fighters kind of in that same bracket as Rohskopf, because you don't want to rush him too much, because we saw what happened with Chase Hooper against Alex Caceres. You don't want to do that. Austin Hubbard's probably the right guy. He struggles against grapplers. He struggles against wrestlers. And for all of those reasons, I think Rohskopf's still going to be able to get the win there. There's decent value on that one. It's one that I wouldn't really venture into, but it should be a good fight. Kyle Kelly, we plus 20 in Edmonton today. So nice. Oh, 20 would be nice. We're 16 above you. My best parlay is Roxy, Casey, Green by finish, Roberts by finish, Burgos, and Blaydes by finish. Carahonge saying UFC ain't ready, and an elf. Well, I don't know what you're getting at there, but it should be a really good one. And Rohskopf, it's a good opportunity. I just don't know where you go from there. We're going to talk about another fighter kind of in the similar space, but not so much as we move on. Roxanne Modafferi, Lauren Murphy. That's one where if you take their last 2 wins, Lauren Murphy had a big one over Andrea Lee. She was a big underdog, and she looked pretty good in that fight. She made it scrappy. She made it gritty. Lauren Murphy's the type, kind of like Hannah Cifers. You want to see a good Hannah Cifers fight, she's got to get scrappy, she's got to get close, she's got to really push the pace. Hannah Cifers has not done that in the UFC lately. Lauren Murphy, on the other hand, has in her last 2 fights. Roxanne Modafferi, though, the quality of the win in her last one, holy cow, you're beating Macy Barber and kind of ruining that hype train. So if you really just focus on those two, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try and base your prediction around that one. I think it should be a good fight. I think that Roxanne Modafferi, though, has way more tools in her tool belt, and she's such a crafty, sneaky type of grappler. She's able to push the pace on her own accord, but if somebody comes towards her, she's able to throw different shots on the feet. She's able to get the fight down to the ground. And if all things are considered, Roxanne Modafferi is a decent pick right there. And if I have a look at the odds, I mean, it's basically a pick'em fight right now. Modafferi around a minus 110. So that's a pretty good one if you're going to throw that one on your card. Kyle Kelly saying parlay a couple Torres and Raquel by points. I say it in some of the videos and it's a joke, and I don't actually have anything here. I don't have a quarter. But normally I flip a coin and it's a joke, and some people take it as serious. These guys, they just flip coins and make picks. It's not how it's done. But that Tisha Torres, Brianna Van Buren fight, that is a real flip of a coin. You could convince me otherwise. So I want to know what you're thinking there in the chat as far as that fight's going. So continuing on. So Frank Camacho taking on Guitar Hero. Let's get back over here and try and make a pick for this one. So Frank Camacho, if you fight Frank Camacho, you're in for a brawl. Typically Frank Camacho, again, we just talked about it with Roxanne Modafferi, pushing the pace, the fact that he'll give one to take one and then some, having not the greatest of striking differential so far in the UFC. Lots of power. It's kind of one of those power versus technique type of things. Justin Jaynes, actually a coach at Extreme Couture, if you can believe it. College wrestler, good at jiu-jitsu, trains with some of the best in the world in these lower weight classes, the Naniges, on occasion, Benil Dariush, Giga Chikadze, names that you might recognize. And it makes it for a really interesting fight there. But Justin Jaynes, coming in late, quality of opponent that he's fought over his entire body of work on the regional scene, not really the greatest. I mean, he's on a 4-fight win streak, all of them by finish. The first one started by first round win due to a fence grab from his opponent. You never want to see that. You really just don't. But if you look at it overall, Justin Jaynes' skill set, somewhat similar to Matt Frivola in a lot of respects. The thing that would scare me and keep me away from this one, and Trent saying Camacho didn't look so motivated at weigh-ins. I mean, weigh-ins are weigh-ins. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, sometimes you see somebody who looks absolutely dead on the scale, and you don't want to see that. Frank Camacho is a guy that's going to have to cut a fair amount of weight. He's fought at 70 in the past in the UFC and elsewhere. 55 here now. Jaynes coming in on the short notice. Has a decent height and reach advantage. And again, he was getting ready for Matt Frivola anyway, so you're getting ready for a wrestler, a guy that can kind of bring it to you on the feet. I think this matchup definitely favors Frank Camacho. I think the odds makers were thinking that as well when they put together their lines. Frank Camacho right now, when he was against Matt Frivola, he was a marginal underdog. Camacho opened to minus 380. The line went all the way up to almost minus 300. Now it's sitting at minus 330 for Camacho. So he's a fairly heavy favorite. That's one that I wouldn't want to keep. Again, that would be another one that you would want to push. So get that one out of there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of decent fights to try and pick on this card. This is probably the one that you want to stay away. But regardless, taking Frank Camacho, there's a really good chance that the Jaynes could win this one. Like, if you want to make the argument that way, which is what we normally do, we'll make an argument for both fighters and then kind of come to our conclusion. If you're of the camp that thought, well, Matt Frevola is going to steamroller over Frank Camacho, then there is a chance that Jaynes could do it. It's just on short notice. The short notice fighters haven't had a ton of success. And Frank Camacho, again, the heat in the hands is something that you had to watch out for. We had picked Camacho against Frevola. I'm going to stick with Camacho in this fight against Jaynes. Your next one, and this was one that I saw some people bringing up in the chat, Jillian Robertson taking on Courtney Casey. It's such a good fight because Courtney Casey, for what it's worth at 25 over Mara Romero Barella, Casey, a lot of people have been saying, oh, you know, she's a decent grappler. She's not too bad. Jillian Robertson is a very good grappler, and records can be deceiving, especially in this fight, because if we bring it up, Casey 9-7, Jillian Robertson 7-4. So you're just barely above 500 by a little bit. Jillian Robertson on a bit of a skid. Courtney Casey coming off a big win in her flyweight debut. And I didn't think about it too hard, but I would think that the smaller cage might favor Jillian Robertson in this fight to try and get her takedowns, where Courtney Casey's just a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, but at weigh-ins, of course, and that's the air quotes. I mean, she weighed in at 123 and a bit. So that was kind of interesting there. Still going to go with Courtney Casey in this fight, just based on the fact that on the feet, Courtney Casey has a distinct advantage, and I think that's where she's going to be able to control it. If she gets into too many bad positions, and again, you want to worry about Jillian Robertson. We talked about it in our prediction video, but go back and watch the fight against Michelle Waterson. It wasn't the best for Courtney Casey. But again, took on a grappler in her last one, got a good finish win. So going to stick with Casey there. Just my 2 cents going with Casey. Alex is saying Roxanne going for the L. Ooh. We also have, can someone answer in how many minutes or hours will the event start? It starts in about 17 minutes. Fight Night Picks ? Kicks. We're going. Usually we try for a half hour before the event. Sometimes it's a little difficult. Tristan and just my 2 cents helping out in the chat. So appreciate that as well. The other question that I wanted to go up to, I watched so many of your videos, I had no idea you were streaming. Question for you: who do you feel more confident in winning and finishing between Roberts and Bobby Green? Thanks for the advice. Roberts. And listen, Jim Miller's a tough out. I think Bobby Green has good upside in that fight, but for Roosevelt Roberts, man, this guy looks like the next thing at 55. Set him up in a fight against somebody like Islam Makhachev or Gregor Gillespie. I mean, that almost seems, in me saying it, that's too much of a test. But if you really think about it, I mean, what's next? If you beat Jim Miller, what's next? It's pretty darn tough there. So, yeah, Roosevelt Roberts has a good shot in that fight. The next one, Torres and Van Buren. So I'm going to go back up through the chat. Keep it coming in the chat. Andrew Hickey saying fancy Torres. Losing streak butt against top-tier opponents. You're right there. Alex Gagnon saying Brianna's faster and better takedowns. That's a win. Quincy Brown saying Torres by TKO. MMA picks, I'll get to your question. Who do you think is the best heavyweight talent outside of the UFC? Because I think UFC needs to freshen up the heavyweight division a bit. Division is old. Well, you got Gon coming in. I know you're really high on, was it Anche Delia at heavyweight? Am I not mistaken? I feel like we've had that conversation before. And Amir Ali Akbari, if the UFC could have got him, but of course USADA was the issue there. All right, so Tristan saying he's got bout money tattooed on his chest. That's Roosevelt Roberts. You're right, and that is a pretty cool tattoo. Vietnamese Zombie joining us. Appreciate it. Ollie saying prediction for the 2 recent middleweight fights that were announced: Romero versus Hall and Omari Akhmedov against Chris Weidman. I think Akhmedov is like the perfect guy to fight Chris Weidman if you want to get Chris Weidman back on track. I know he had that fight against Ian Heinisch where he was able to get the win, so a tough test there. I would slightly favor Chris Weidman because I don't think he'd get caught that bad. And then Yoel Romero against Uriah Hall. I had Uriah Hall to beat Jacare Souza, so take that for what it's worth. I think Uriah Hall is Yoel Romero, if he just sits there and does what he's done, that's a pretty good fight for Uriah Hall. But I'd have to do a little bit more research. But just you asking me the question, I'd say Romero and Weidman, going with an old head response there. But I think there's a lot of upside in Hall there. And Omari Akhmedov. That's a pretty good one. Manny Lopez saying, what's the most confident on the prelims? We'll get into that right at the end. And Liam Murphy is not happy. So, sorry, Liam Murphy. I think I ended up going 8-4. You'd have to find... You'd have to go back through and have a look. And we post all the results down below. So, yeah, let's continue on. Dexter Chu saying, thoughts on Roberts TKO Modafferi decision parlay? I mean, geez, now that I'm thinking about it, Jim Miller is a really tough out. And some people were quick to say, Jim Miller, his record of late isn't great. But let's talk about the competition. Didn't get finished by Poirier, didn't get finished by Pettis, didn't get finished by Trinaldo, got finished by Dan Hooker, beat Alex White, lost by finished Oliveira, beat Gonzalez, beat Guida, lost to Scott Holtzman. He's not getting finished by some of the top tier opponents there. I mean, to kind of go back on it, Roberts is going to win. The prop on that is a tough ask. So we'll have to see how that one goes. It should be a good one. But for Torres and Van Buren, and it's been said before, Van Buren more powerful, this and that. I think Van Buren's going to get the win. That's probably the biggest coin flip that's on this card is Torres and Van Buren because, again, and it's been mentioned as well in the chat, the fact that Brianna Van Buren is on, a great little, tidy little streak. Tisha Torres losing 4 in a row. 3 champs and Marina Rodriguez. I mean, that's pretty tough. Marina Rodriguez is a tough out if you haven't seen her fight. And for Tisha Torres to have this fight against Brianna Van Buren, it's almost like 1A because they fight somewhat similar. Van Buren probably pushing more of a pace, getting more of the takedowns, whereas Tisha Torres, she's confident on the feet to almost a fault because the bread and butter is certainly the wrestling. So that should be an interesting one. I'm going to stick with the original pick of Van Buren, but it's a fight that you're not going to want to miss. And then in the featured prelim, as weird as it is, Clay Guida, the Carpenter, taking on Bobby Green. And it's one where a lot of people are picking Bobby Green. A lot of people are saying Bobby Green's going to win by finish. Yeah, I mean, he got finished by Jim Miller, but if you go back and watch that fight, Jim Miller caught him there, and they were swinging and trading. His fight against BJ Penn was what it was. Before that, Charles Oliveira, and then we're going all the way back to 2017 when he beat Eric Koch and Joe Lozon. So it should be a good fight. It should be an entertaining fight. Matt brought it up, and it's a great point. The fact that if you watch the shoulder rolls of Bobby Green, the fact that he does that, he can kind of keep his head up and high. If Guida can crack him, there's the big opportunity. There's also the fact that Clay Guida is one of the better wrestlers that we've seen over his entire tenure in the lightweight division. Maybe not 2020, but just in the totality, most top time out of anybody that's ever fought in the UFC with 1 hour and 18 minutes, which is insane, and a stat that I committed to memory, so hopefully I never forget that one. If we continue on and have a look through this card, Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts had Roberts in that fight. Belal Muhammad, Lyman Good had Belal Muhammad in that fight. Raquel, Pennington, Marion, Reneau went with Pennington. Co-main, great fight. And I know I just breezed through those 3. So take it for what it's worth. Roberts and Miller, it's tough for me to see a path to victory for Jim Miller unless he just absolutely mauls Roosevelt Roberts and Roberts struggles with that. I don't see Jim Miller catching him on the feet. It's really tough to find a path to victory for Jim Miller in that one. If you look at the odds, they favor Roberts at about a minus 256 is the average on best fight odds. So that's a pretty decent one there. Tristan saying, I hope Bobby Green KOs Guida. Guida's bouncing around is so annoying. Tristan, he's kind of like Ben Rothwell. The herky-jerky movement. And if you don't like Bobby Green or Ben Rothwell's herky-jerky movement, I'm sorry that I brought it here to the show. So apologies there. The other thing, Kyle Kelly saying 11 years ago today was Guida and Sanchez fight, if I'm not mistaken. Remember that time that Clay Guida ruined Anthony Pettis' title shot when he came in from WEC? How insane is it to think of that? And then these guys still competing in the UFC all this time later. It's kind of wild there. Lyman Good, Belal Muhammad. Trent saying, may I ask why not Lyman Good? Alexis saying good. Who else here? I know you're there. Let's see. Just my 2 cents. Maybe Lyman Good. Danny D saying Lyman Good. Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad is like a wet blanket. And listen, I don't sleep with a wet blanket. And you shouldn't either. But Belal Muhammad, if he can implement his game plan and just lay and pray on Lyman Good, he should be able to get the win. Dexter saying, I think Good has the edge. Everybody's going with Lyman Good. That's all well and good. You're not going to hurt my feelings there. And if Lyman Good wins, the very best to him. Quincy Brown saying coin flip. MMA picks saying Olynyk versus Lewis. MMA picks, you're throwing some tough ones at me. Derek Lewis. Jonathan Smith, thoughts on Modafferi and Murphy. Modafferi all day. Just my 2 cents, pretty confident in Belal Muhammad. So, to talk about that fight, Lyman Good, 35 years old, Shred City. But does that translate into the later half of the fight? Because you'd have to favor Lyman Good, first round, knockout power, all that. Does it go the distance? Because if Belal Muhammad doesn't get caught in that first round, he's going to be able to implement his game plan. He's going to be able to take the fight to the ground. It's not like Lyman Good has the greatest wrestling. It's not terrible. But, I mean, if we look at Lyman Good's overall body of work, and I'll pull it up here just to kind of dive into it. Former Bellator champ. He had that long layoff from 2015 to 2017 when these guys were supposed to fight. And that was a USADA suspension. Loses to Zaleski dos Santos. So let's pick out his last 2 wins. He beat Ben Saunders. Ben Saunders. Okay. What was Ben Saunders' record at that time? So he was at the start. Actually, he was 1-6, and his one win was Jake Ellenberger. So that's where Ben Saunders was at that point. And then he had the win over Chance Rencounter. But, Chance Rencounter so far in the UFC, I know he's got one halfway good win. He beat Kyle Stewart, finished him. Well, that was when Stewart came in on short notice for that fight. And he beat Ismail Nardiev, and you can't take that one away from him. So I'll say that. That was a good win over Nordiev. But, how deep do you want me to get into Belal Muhammad and Lyman Good? So, going to stick with Muhammad in that one. Producer Henny Boy saying 21-5 over 16-3 all day. That doesn't mean a whole lot. That doesn't, would you pick, who is it? Who's got the best record in MMA? The really wild one. That'd be like saying Tony Lopez is going to beat a 6-0 heavyweight. Well, the 6-0 could be a phenom. And look at Tony Lopez's record. Tons of fights. Sergio Flores saying Emmett or Burgos. And producer Henny Boy saying Emmett coming up, stay soon. I hate to break it to you, but we'll see where that goes. Raquel Pennington and Marion Reneau. It's one of those things we talked about in the breakdown video where do you take the parts of somebody's game or do you take the whole one in MMA? Well, you take the whole one. And Marion Reneau, you look at her, and if you just take certain parts, her striking can be good. She has lots of power. Her jiu-jitsu is great. Is it awesome off her back? Raquel Pennington is kind of just like the Belal Muhammad in just one respect. Push forward, go against the cage. If Raquel Pennington push forward and just get into the clinch, should be able to get a win there for Pennington. If she can just kind of grind out a boring decision, she should be able to get the win. Now, you're always going to finish the fight, or that's what you want to do, but I would expect Pennington to be able to get the win here. I wouldn't say fairly easily. Again, this is one of those ones where we're talking, women's bantamweights. You look at Raquel Pennington's last 4. You had Nunes, then you had Jermaine Durandamy. She beat Aldana, and then she lost to Holm in one of the more boring fights that you'll ever see. And then Marion Reneau, she's lost 2 in a row to Kat Zingano and Yana Kunitskaya. Well, if Kat Zingano can get the win, I would certainly expect Raquel Pennington to get one there as well. Andrew Hickey saying, remember, Pennington has to watch Torres go first. That mental piece could play a part. What if Tisha Torres wins? Then Raquel Pennington's full steam ahead. So yeah, gonna go with Pennington there. Just my 2 cents saying going with Rocky to outwork the older fighter. Hey, it's Marion Reneau's birthday. She turns 43 today. So happy birthday, Marion Reneau. Kudos to you. Let's get back into there. So Christopher saying my most confident underdog pick. We'll get into that at the end. I'll do a little bit of a recap and I'll have a look at the odds just quickly. Now this is pretty much your main event. This is the one that everybody's excited for. This is what I want to know in the chat. Who are you going with? So Tristan saying, Craig, what is the single fight you're most looking forward to? Your co-main event of the evening, Josh Emmett and Shane Burgos. I mean, let's get into this. My favorite prop that I have in the office here, I got the butterbean glove. I mean, this is just going to be a straight up great boxing match between these two guys. Hopefully. Now, I know a lot of people have said, well, Josh Emmett, college wrestler, got into MMA a little bit late, this and that. And that's true. And he doesn't fight like Justin Gaethje, but he doesn't use his wrestling like Justin Gaethje doesn't really use his wrestling. So that's one of those things that you kind of have to worry about. And with Shane Burgos, it's the footwork, the in and out, the kicks, and then the crisp boxing and the combinations, all reasons why I think Shane Burgos can win this fight. And in our episode of Fight Night Picks Early Stoppage, which you should definitely check out, it is a great show. We have a lot of fun doing that. We have a segment called Over Under. And it might have seemed arbitrary if you watched the show that I picked, and Apollo Rise, it was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday yesterday. It's belated birthday. If you watch that, I picked the over-under is how many body shots is Shane Burgos going to land in this fight. My number was 32 because if you look at his last fight, Makwan Amirkhani able to grind on him for a bit, and then Shane Burgos able to take over. If you watch the fight before that, Cub Swanson, where you just got a combo up top. You got to keep it high. Against Josh Emmett, weave in and out. You always have to worry, though, again, about the power shots of Josh Emmett. Could he hit you with an uppercut? Could he hit you with that nice overhand right? And that's where it gets a little tricky. So it should be an interesting fight, but I'm going to go with Burgos nonetheless, and I will actually look up the odds for this one because they were close when we made the pick. Shane Burgos minus 166, open at minus 155, and Josh Emmett sitting somewhere around a plus 140, which is, it's good if you figure that Josh Emmett's going to win. The only thing I want to say, and you look at this, I mean, Smoking L's is saying Burgos is just really careless defensively. I mean, yeah and no. You look at the speed in his hands, and you look at the combinations that he can throw, and if he can just come inside on Josh Emmett and at least move in and out, you have to expect Shane Burgos to be able to get a win. I mean, if you go back and watch the Michael Johnson fight against Josh Emmett, which I think is almost a good blueprint until he got knocked out, just don't get knocked out, which is easy for me to say, and, set up some range, set up some distance, and land your shots. And that's kind of the blueprint as far as me saying this over a computer, which is an oversimplification, and it's easy to say. It should be an awesome fight. It's the fight of the night. It's the fight that I'm most looking forward to. I think it should be great. Trent saying, do I like Courtney Casey? Yeah, Casey over Robertson. And let's see. Del Stevens saying Modafferi is definitely losing tonight. I don't think so. Let's see. Finley Small taking Blaydes. Jonathan Smith saying Blaydes, Roberts, Modafferi with 2.5. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good options here. And in your main event, Curtis Blaydes, Alexander Volkov. I want to know who's picking Alexander Volkov. Let me know. Who's picking Alexander Volkov? Let's get into it. Because smaller cage certainly has to favor Curtis Blaydes. I set the over-under in that show at, I think, 5 takedowns, and I said under for sure. I think it'd be about 3 for Blaydes. If he's able to get it to the ground, I just don't see Alexander Volkov able to get a win. Matt brought up a great point. If Blaydes is coming in, Volkov throws nice strikes with his legs up the front. So it could be a front kick, it could be a knee, it could be this and that. He can certainly give you the business. If I keep talking cliches, we got about a minute left before the fight starts, or before the entire thing starts. So it'll be an interesting one. MMA picks saying he's got Volkov. Who else? Zero saying Blaydes second round KO. Tristan Volkov by flying knee. Just my 2 cents. Blaydes is a lock, and Alex saying Volkov is winning tonight by KO in the 3rd round. I would think that if it goes, the longer the fight goes, it would probably favor Alexander Volkov. There's just a lot of things that you have to worry about. Blaydes, power in his hands, the wrestling's great, and he's fought in big pressure spots before, and he's been able to get the win. Not that Volkov hasn't. He's main evented as well. You can go back to, on a number of instances, and the worst one to watch out for is that Derek Lewis one, where right at the end, Lewis able to throw the power shot and get the win. So if I can go all the way back through very quickly before we head out, and I appreciate all the comments. I mean, they're just rolling in. I might not have a chance to get back to all of them. Going with Rohskopf, Modafferi, Camacho, Courtney Casey. Going with Marc-Andre Barriault, which I skipped over that one. That's my underdog pick on this card, for sure. Going with Barriault in that one over Oscar Piata. Piata's got good power. If it's going to end in the first round, it's probably going to be Oscar Piata getting the win. But yeah, going to go with Barriault there. Going with Brianna Van Buren, Bobby Green over Clay Guida. That should be a great fight. Roosevelt Roberts, again, that's one that I would definitely want to keep in there. Belal Muhammad, Raquel Pennington, Shane Burgos, and Curtis Blaydes, and Nick Musi sounding the horn, saying, we are live, let's go. Well, it's time for me to get out of here. Kyle Kelly joining us. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate everybody hopping into the chat. We got a busy week coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to have the recap show. So look forward to that one. We've got new episodes of Early Stoppage every week. Make sure you check those out. And we've got extras coming to the channel. We've got big things planned for 2020. We've brought people on, so you're going to see them debuting somewhat soon. If you have some interest, maybe you've done some video stuff before, maybe you haven't, maybe you're interested in writing, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP, at Matt Allen FNP, and at Fight Night Picks. And hopefully everybody enjoys the card. It should be a really good one. Enjoy your weekend, and let's get into it.
It's time!
For 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.